Is now started. Thank you, Liz Ann, for that catch. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. Okay.
Joseph,
Yes.
I'm really sorry. Is the practice room that you're referring to, is that the one in the October section? Because I can't find the practice room or office hour room for you in November.
So there it is in November. I've seen it there. So it may be that you need to reload Teachable, maybe just up in your browser and get an updated. You may be looking at an older version of Teachable that was in your browser, if you will. God, I love this stuff. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the Qigong. If you can't find the notes, they'll still be there later. If you can't find them later, email me, we'll find them for you. Okay. So you'll get them. They're there. So I do the notes basically to keep me in flow, but also to give you something so you don't have to write a whole lot down. If you do have them writing your own little notes on top of that, that's awesome. Totally great. And I want to use our time well. So here we go. Sincere intention, good faith, clear intent. One of the oldest writings that we have from Chinese culture is called Da Shui, the Great Learning. And in it, you've actually probably heard it paraphrased, because if you want peace in the world, you have to start with peace in your home. If you have peace in your home, you can have peace in your village. If you have peace in your village, you can have peace in your country. If you have peace in your country, you can have peace in the world. But the only way to get to peace in the world is to have peace inside, to have that sincere intent to be peaceful. Share that with friends and family. Move that from there into the next level of the outer world, quote unquote, into the next level, the next level. That creates peace in the world. Peace is created from a sincere intent internally to be peaceful and to share that out externally. So far, so good. When we look at these characters, what I want you especially to look at right now is the second character there, Yi, right? Yi is in the five spirits. It's the spirit of the earth element. It's the spirit of the spleen and the stomach. If you look at the character at the bottom, you're going to see four lines. There's a dash, a swoop, a dash, and then another dash. All right. That's the heart. Also the mind. Heart and mind are the same character in Chinese. In fact, the mind is all the aspects of consciousness of a human being. Right. Above that, there's an open mouth with a tongue. So kind of like the tongue sticking out and talking. Above that is someone who is sitting or standing and expressing. One version of this is, if you know a poem by heart, you can just say the poem. The Gettysburg Address, it's an American speech by Abraham Lincoln. Okay, 20 years ago, our forefathers, you just know it by memory. Okay, you can express it from your heart. You know, there are things in life that you just know by heart. All right. So with that energy in and of us, that thing that we express from our heart and can articulate through our speech and through our actions, having that be sincere, having that be clear. Character on the left there is Cheng. Sincere, true, honest. If you look at the breakdown below, middle of the page there, the left image is words, your speech, what you say, what you speak. And the right image is Cheng, which is become, to complete, to accomplish. So words that get something done. Sometimes someone who's very sincere can say the wrong thing verbally, and you still understand exactly what they mean. There's something in children. They have a sincerity when they're being childlike and not childish. I'll say this. Um, they just blurt it out. They're very sincere and they just say it. All right. So what I'm getting at here is that one of the things that makes our actions and our speech in the world effective is that it comes from our heart, that we say it sincerely, right? The intent that we bring to using an oil on a point can have this sincere intention. Um, the words that we use when talking to someone who's upset can have this intention. It may not always work like we think it's supposed to, or we hope it's supposed to, but the clarity of, or the sincerity of our intent is what comes through the words, is what comes through the actions, right? This is extremely important for me clinically. Um, if I'm having a bad day, I don't want that intent to come across in the sessions that I might do and the work I might do with people. So I have to do things that help me get to the sincerity of my intent of how can I help. Uh, you all know well now, bergamot on your shen men. It's one of the clearest and simplest ways to get through the haze of the feelings and irritations of the day and to the sincerity of how can I help. So far, so good. Okay. Now, I, so you'll hear me say this 1,000 times, if at least once. The unique role of the human being is that we are between heaven and earth. We bring the two together so we can share them here on this planet, on this plane, right? The sky above is heaven. Someone question there? Okay. The sky above is heaven. The earth below is earth. When I say heaven, I want to be really crystal clear on this. The Chinese meant something much more like we mean sky. That area that has the lights, the sun, the moon, and the stars. I'm fairly certain that in classical Chinese philosophy, there was not an old white guy in heaven being God. Okay. Um, you are welcome to God, goddess, or the deity of your choice, as far as I'm concerned. And this concept is about those overarching, the energies that are above us that guide us. We can be guided by the weather that we see in the sky and the weather that's coming towards us. We can be guided by the way the stars turn in the heavens and noticing that every day is a little different and that different seasons have different stars. We can be guided by the light of the moon and the way things go through a monthly cycle. So far, so good. I'll take some head nods. Yes, right on. Earth, okay. If you take a look at the slide there, you'll see two, soil and earth is on the side. And then, yeah, which is a pictograph of a raiton. This is like a horn of plenty. This is, in the US, we're about to have Thanksgiving. There's a classic cornucopia where all the bounty of nature is coming out to feed us. And a raiton is an old Greek word, and it's a ceremonial offering vessel. You would put your water or your libation in this vessel, you would make it sacred, and then you would pour it on the earth to ensure or encourage, to connect with the fertility of the earth, to bring the fertility of the earth forward. All right. So I will translate sky as the guiding principle of life and earth as the nourishing principle of life. It's easier and it's classic. Tiandi is heaven and earth, and that's everything that we live within. Okay. So if the unique role of the human being is to join heaven and earth, how do we do that? Right? I'm gonna come back into screen mode and try and get to the Zoom meeting mode. Can you see me now? You can see me now, head notes, thumbs up. I love it. I love visual cues. Okay. Qigong, there's a question there. Go for it.
It's me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
It's
you.
because there's this echo, and I can see a lot of writing about an echo. And I'm thinking about you, Joseph. You're on. It looks like you're on with two devices,
Yes,
and I might think that's making the echo. It could be.
it is muted and it may be making the echo.
Yeah.
So let's do this. I think I just ended the echo. Yep.
We can try it out.
Well, okay. So I'm now just one. Oh my God. I hope I could look at this. I'm just one. Thank you for that. All right. So Marie, I think we got that solved. I'm going to go back into the Qigong that we've done so far. One of my taglines, if you will, for the school that I had, the Acupressure Institute, was awaken the healing in your hands. All right. That's meant in your physical hands, but also in the hands of what you can do in the world. Right. A good place to start with that is what is called classically prayer pose. I'll move back. All right. So we're going to take our two palms, bring them together, and bring them right up next to the chest. Take a few deep breaths. And literally, I'm connecting my heart and my hands. Now, in the energetics of Chinese medicine, we have 3 meridians that are in the hands: the heart, the pericardium, and the lungs, right? So heart and pericardium are clearly heart. That's the heart and the heart protector. And the lungs are the organs on each side of that heart in the center. Right? So this very, very simple pose, this very, very simple, sincere intention is to connect with the heart through my hands. Here. And what I want to say here is, even though it looks like I'm not doing much, I'm doing a lot. I'm connecting what I'm going to do with my hands, the work that's in my hands, the things I can bring into the world, the things I can share, and even how I can bring the world into me. All right. I'm going to do that with heart. I'm going to do that with intention. I'm going to do that with sincerity. And this simple pose gets all of that done without me thinking about it too much. And I can think about things too much. All right. Now, the next piece of Qigong that I shared with you is joining heaven and earth. So I'm going to move out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to do this. There's a hand share. Go ahead. Is that Hester? You want to say something? Oh, you're moving your hands. I love it. Good. So I start with this pose, and I'm going to go one hand up and one hand down. All right. Now, and then exhale and back up, one each side. Let's do 3 of those. Inhale up, exhale back to the heart. Inhale up to the sky and down to the earth. What is hard to point out when I'm standing like this and you can't see my feet is that my palm is open to the sky, and let's see if I can get this done. The sole of my foot is open to the earth, is open to the ground, is open to the nourishing principle that is underneath and supports me. So in a way, I'm going to correct to the light, warmth, and air of the sky. And I'm also going to connect with the nourishment and moisture of the earth below. Again, the unique role of the human being is to connect heaven and earth, okay, So I get the guiding principle and the nourishing principle, and then I bring them together in my hands, and then I move them in the world, right? Let's do 3 of these together. Inhale up, exhale down. Again, back to the heart. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Just notice, I'm noticing at this moment, this feels good. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Come back to the heart for a moment. What I want you to notice, what you end up cultivating over time, first being aware of it and then cultivating over time, is that I have a connection to the sky. I have a connection to the earth. I can run them through me. In fact, the meridians, 6 of them start in heaven and descend through me. 6 of them start in earth and ascend through me. Okay. The mixture of the 2 brings me into the center of my body. Okay. There's the heart center right there. Right. If I mix these well, if I have my guidance and my nourishment and I mix them well, then what I bring into the world through my hands has that flavor, has that intention. That's the idea. Right? Next bit of Qigong. I showed you a Tai Chi ruler, or first of all, we did this, okay, the magnetic piece. All right. Go ahead and do that. And then just play with it. Get close. Imagine again a magnet, all right, or 2 magnets, and you're sitting there doing the opposite poles, so they move away from each other. They're intimately and energetically connected, and right there, they're repelling. Okay. They can also be intimately connected and be in sync, right? And it's feeling that we get out of doing this exercise, right? To further that exercise, one of the things I've done in the last year is remember all the things I've been taught over the years, and kind of like opening gifts that I was given that I hadn't really fully opened before. And one of them, I had a teacher, Fong Ha, a Chinese man. He was a mathematics teacher in San Francisco. And in Berkeley, he would do Tai Chi and Qigong in the parks, right? And I was like, okay, let's go see what this guy's got to do, what he's got to say. One of the things that got into me was his Tai Chi ruler. Now, literally, the man is a math teacher, okay? And in his school system, they had rulers, all right? And he would take a ruler with his kids and have them do this as a way of working the chi in their hands, okay? Because then they could write their answers to the test better. They could become more embodied with their sincere intention and do whatever they needed to do for class better. So you could take a ruler, all right? I have, because I'm just that kind of guy. I've taken a pen because the pen is mightier than the sword, and I'll do this and this, and I have that same piece, right? I recently was gifted some bamboo, and so I made myself one, okay? Really nice bamboo, some rubber stoppers on the end. And I do this so that first I'll do the standard piece, out, down, and around, come back a little bit, out, down, and around. So I make a circle with it. Then I reverse the circle. What this does is open up my shoulders. What that does is open up my chest. What that does is open up my lungs. What that does is open up the space for my heart. Right? So you can do it with or without a ruler. Okay? You can do it this way. And if you are extending your chi from one palm to the other, from one pericardium 8 to the other, from one Lao Gong or labor palace to the other, you can feel that in space. You're feeling that in space yourself, okay, is the essential tool to feel that in space with another person, to be able to feel the chi of a point. So getting clear what it feels like with your own hands and doing this, and being able to perceive, acknowledge, and allow what you feel starts to give you the affirmation, the tool to then take that to a particular point. Am I making sense so far out there? Again, remember the guy? Yes, I love it. Okay. So, yes. Okay. Let's go through this short form. Okay. Come all the way back to the prayer. As you breathe, just notice the warmth in your hands. Chi is a warm phenomenon, right? And it's emanating from one pericardiumate towards the other pericardiumate. From there, I'm going to go inhale, one hand up, one hand down. Exhale back towards the heart center. Inhale, one up and one down. Back towards the heart center. Inhale, one up, one down. Back towards the heart center. Okay. Now go ahead and make the distance with the hands. And make the Tai Chi ruler of my own Chi, of my own imagination, of my own intention. So I can feel the space between, but the connection, especially the connection between. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Again, let's warm this up again. You probably have some oils nearby. So I'm going to extend this one bit. As I'm studying an oil, as I'm getting to know an oil, as I'm feeling into the information of an oil, I might take that oil, okay? I'm taking the patchouli. I'm going to put a drop of it right there, pericardiumate, and I'm going to do this and then do this with it. You have likely heard me say, do the method to learn the method. Do the method to teach the method. Teach the method by doing the method. Some version of that. They're all the same, right? If we're going to use our chi, our intention, okay, if we're going to use the oils, the better feel we have for them, the more we can work with the energies they embody, because they were plants, okay? They were very fully embodied. They had roots that reached into the earth. They had branches and leaves that reached for the sky. They did that connection of heaven earth thing too. Right? A few more things on pericardiumate, and then we'll move on to the sequence. The palm of the hand and the sole of the foot under the skin have a broad, flat, thin piece of connective tissue that's called an aponeurosis. Don't really need to know that term, but it's fascia. You probably want to know that term. Fascia has collagen and elastin. Fascia has basement membrane or matrix, all right? The fascia is very absorptive to essential oils. It pulls in oils, it repels water. The matrix that those fibers are in pulls in water. It's kind of like a sponge where the connective tissue, the collagen and elastin are like the shape of the sponge and the holes and everything, that it lets the water in, all right? So one of the most useful points to put an oil on is pericardium 8 for a variety of reasons. It gets into the system very fast. You smell something? It's into the brain in nanoseconds. Through the fascia of the hand, it gets into the nervous system. Remember that fascia completely envelops and surrounds the nervous system. So it gets in another way than olfactory into the nervous system and into the brain. Very powerful. You may know that sometimes for sleep problems, kidney 1, the sole of the foot, will be used with vetiver on it. Same basic idea. In fact, kidney 1, let's see if I can do this, right there, okay? If I was 4-legged, both my kidney 1s are just like both my pericardium 8s. If I'm on all 4s, they're the same points, just forepaws and back paws. Did that make sense? All right. So there's a point here, there's a point in the sole of each foot in an analogous position that connects me with the earth if I'm 4-legged, if I'm a cat, a dog, a tiger, whatever it might be. The unique role of the human being is to take those forepaws off the ground and lift them to heaven, right? Which is part of what makes the unique role of the human being, joining heaven and earth. I think that's enough Qigong, but carry the Qi with you as we go to the next piece. Well, let me do this. Questions so far? We're doing okay in there? Got a question? Unmute yourself and speak. I was that clear? Nobody has any questions? Oh, hard to believe, but good. Okay. You have a question, Hester?
May I?
Yes, please.
Just check. I'm doing a very specific, I don't know what you call that, like line of Qigong. I practice Qineng.
Okay.
And one of the things that teacher Leo always teaches us is to make sure that our underarms, when we are in prayer position or anything, are not touching our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
As if they do, it's harder to feel the energy in the beginning because you block your meridians.
Sure.
And I'm just questioning if that would apply to anything that we're doing here as well.
Yes, and yes, it would apply, and don't get caught in it, okay? But being aware of it, not caught in it, if I have this, one of the things you'll notice is that my arms are away from my chest. And so I actually have that space open. And I do it by intending to a space that officially, quote unquote, is a cubit. It's the measure of one's own arm length, okay? So if you wanted to make an ideal Tai Chi ruler for yourself, theoretically, it should be from your elbow to the base of your thumb, all right? That will, because of the configuration, the ratios of the chest and arms, keep your arms away from the sides. So you're not doing this, not bound up, okay? If you're bound up, your heart's not open, your lungs aren't open. You can't inhale Qi, you can't move blood, all right? So that idea of keeping your arms away or open, armpits open, very important. And when you're doing it with a tool like this, you end up doing it naturally. We have been taught in many ways in family and schools to hold ourselves in, all right? You know, a good military posture is that, okay? Exactly. That way someone else can use my arms, all right? And arms races, and I won't even go there, okay? But that openness is an open-handedness, an open-armedness, and also an open-heartedness. Great point. Thank you, Hester. Any other questions out there before we move along? Okay. I'm going to go back to the screen share mode. See if I can make the technology work for us. Okay. One more bit on the Tai Chi ruler. The character ruler, the third one over here, if you can see my screen, is also means measure. And it in between heaven and earth, one of the measures of the universe, one of the measures of the cosmos is my own arm. What I can do with my arms and hands is how I measure the universe, but also a measure of how I influence the universe. It's a pretty broad philosophical opening there. Prayer is a form of Changyi. This allows me to reconnect with my inner heart, with my inner sincerity. What do I want to do? What do I want this day to be like? Right? Joining heaven and earth, okay? The unique role of humanity is to join heaven and earth. That is to embody heaven while we're here in, on, of this earth. Tai Chi ruler, it's a measure, a ruler of the supreme ultimate. Tai Chi, supreme ultimate. It's the length of 1 cubit, ours. We are a measure of the world of the universe with and at arm's length. I shared this with some people early on in the Facebook forum. This is again that same era of time of the great learning. What astounds me, there's a book from 300 BC is when we see it being written down, 350 BC. Some people say the oral tradition is much older than that, right? It is the first meditation textbook that we have that's in Chinese language and that's written down. And it's really very simple practices like the Qigong I've just shared with you about how to still one's own mind, how to calm one's own heart, and how to bring a sincere intention to what you do, what you share in the world. It would be useful if we taught this in schools. Okay. Lao Gong, briefly, up at the top here, you're going to see 2 fires and then the character for strength. So pericardium 8 has a double fire strength. Those of you that are massage therapists or body workers, energy workers, you might start working on someone and you go, oh, I'm sorry, my hands are kind of cold. After you've been working for a while, when you get there, when the chi gets there, all of a sudden the hands warm up, okay? That's that double fire strength coming through. Briefly, you see here, there is a nice roof and then a 2-story building, okay? For a peasant in China, a 2-story building is clearly a palace, all right? And the pericardium is the protector and the dwelling for the emperor, for the heart. I'll leave you to read more of that if you choose. There is a picture of the chi emanating from that area of the palm, emitting chi. A lot of qigong in external application is getting the chi to move from that out into the world, possibly into an area of someone's body. I'll give another picture here. When I'm teaching Reiki, one of the things I do is I take one of the early Reiki symbols and put it in pericardium 8 or emanating from pericardium 8. And that's how you get the chi there, the Choku Rei. Again, it's an ancient hands-on technique of sharing this universal healing energy. Okay. Sharing this universal healing energy. You've got the sequence charts. Shake, nod, give me thumbs up. Okay. Let me do it this way. Questions on them. Anybody want to unmute and throw a question at me? Okay.
I
have
love
a little question.
Sure.
I'm still very tempting to use bergamot on the ear before I start. Is this okay to add 2 oils on top of each other?
It's not a problem. And neroli is a cousin of bergamot.
Yeah.
So it's simpatico. They work well together. Neroli is the flower oil, okay? And the bergamot is the oil of the rind of the fruit. I would, one of my favorite teaching points here with the part of the plant. The flowers are used for weddings and funerals. Flowers are about a moment of time. They bloom and they die. They're short-lived. A tree is very long-lived, okay? A citrus fruit, which we use the rinds of, is a whole season. It's a whole year in a way, all right? So it has a different time frame to it. I don't mean that to make
Okay.
a yes or no, but to just kind of, part of what you're doing is you're putting it in a yearly context that helps calm things down so you can then get to a more moment time. One way of interpreting.
This is how I feel when I do it, yeah. That I kind of have the need of getting a big wind down and then I can start, kind of thing.
Yeah. One of the things that I really love from the ecological point of view of the oils is, why did the plant put an oil here at this time? And flower oils are a very different purpose. They're not just the defensive purpose of the immune system, but they're also the reproductive purpose of, let's get some bees over here. Okay. Let's,
Yeah.
genuinely. And in fact, neroli is known for being an alluring and even aphrodisiac oil. It's like getting some bees to come over here. All right. Bergamot.
I have noticed that.
You'll see in the main sheets on the neroli, it got its name from a princess of Nerola, Italy, okay, because of how she used, how she popularized it. Now, she's a courtesan in Europe, okay, and then this is the time when there's a lot of royal to-dos going on and who's going to be king or queen and all of that sort of stuff. I don't want to go into it, but she basically used it as a signature and an alluring fragrance, which helped her get to a particular place so she could do what she felt to do. Okay, I'm not going to plus or minus that, but it's an interesting thing. The orange blossoms, the sour or bitter orange blossoms, okay, do this to attract bees and reproduce, okay? And that's only part of what they're using it for, but it's a major part of what the flower is about. So I won't go too much further than that, but everybody's got Shen Men down. Head nods, okay? Pretty good, okay?
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. One of the things I want you to notice as far as the points in this sequence, there's only 2 new points. Lung 3 and conception vessel 4, okay? You already had with rooting to expand. We had Shen Men and we had CV17, okay? So we just have to add 2 new points. They're really good points. You know me, I love, if you want to know the most important point, it's the point I'm talking about right now, okay? And then it changes when I talk about another point. Lung 3, this is at that junction where the deltoid muscle is coming in to the edge of the bicep right there, okay? This is heaven's palace. If I'm going to open up to the sky above, all right, I'm connecting. It's as if I am in the palace, and that gives me access to the awareness of heaven. And this gives my lung that access to heaven. And sometimes I cry to heaven because I don't understand why someone died. I cry to heaven because I miss them so much. I open my lungs and open up to go, why? Right? And sometimes I receive back an awareness that this is the way it is. Life is lived and then we pass. There is a longevity to the cycles of passage through family or through generations of plants. But this point is one of those ones that helps me open up to what it is like. You'll see that it says calms the Po. This is the body soul, and the body soul homes in the lungs. If you can't breathe, you get very frantic in a very kinesthetic way, all right? This is like, when you're tired, you may want to do something with your mind, but you're so tired in body that your Po goes, nope, we're not going out tonight. Ain't gonna do that. I had it all scheduled, not gonna do it. I just don't have the energy for it. That's the chi of the body soul. And that's the part of the spirit. The Po is the part of the spirit that is most intimately affected by grief. The Po is said to give us the ability to cry. Little babies are considered mostly Po. There are other aspects of spirit have to be developed, but they're crying and they feel the body exquisitely. I am not saying that we don't, but we have learned ways around that. Sometimes useful, sometimes less. Right? This point allows me to connect with those, the connection with heaven and the connection with my lungs and connection with my grieving in an embodied sense. Okay. Window of the sky point. Windows of the sky always get a lot of attention. There are a few words in some of the old books, a few sentences about windows of the sky, and they have been taken to be used for a lot of things. Classically, they're used for growths in the neck, like a goiter or a swelling. All right. Some people have taken them and looked at the connection between the body and heaven. And so there's, in Western medicine, they have proved that there's a connection between the brain and the body. They found a structure and they have named it the neck. That's a bad joke from an anatomy point of view, okay? But that if we get stuck below and can't open to above, there's a whole lot of things that we lack in life. Windows of the sky, and the way some people use that, the way it's used in the Worsley School of Chinese medicine, all right, is about opening in a more expanded way. I'll leave it at that. My only thing is, if you open the window at the end of the session, you want to close it, okay? Because if the window stays open and there's a storm, things blow in, right? Conception vessel 4. This is 3 fingers under the belly button, okay? This is one of those points, quite honestly, as someone who makes charts, there's a lot of pictures of this point on the internet that are less than family oriented. This point is big for the lower belly, for the reproductive function, for the uterus. It's huge. And if you think of the uterus as the gate of origin, we all came in through that door, all right? So this point has a big effect on the reproductive function and the opening, you could say in an anatomical sense, the opening and closing of the cervix, which is very profound in labor and delivery, but is also profound in the act of conception, all right? Broadly, this point opens and restores circulation of the pelvis. And origin, this is a conception vessel point. And when they say conception, they mean the conception of a child, the conception of an idea. It is something that in our world, especially the world of humans, is a female function. I believe men can have female functions too, just I'm not going to be giving birth anytime in this lifetime, right? So there's a lot of power, a lot of rooted power, a lot of root and second chakra power in this point conception vessel 4. One of the things I love in this sequence is the pairing with patchouli is brilliant. Patchouli is an oil of leaves, and they're really there to help the plant fight off the funguses that might be in the soil that could damage the plant. All right. So it's an oil that deals with dampness and keeps the roots open. One of the problems the reproductive function can have is dampness, is excess fluids that are in the way or that have gone bad and can inhibit reproduction. Right. So there's an interesting match there between what the plant was doing, the ecological use of the oil, right? And that earthy, nourishing principle and reproductive, again, this is one of those oils that is usually considered an aphrodisiac, all right? It helps open the energy of the lower burner and the reproductive function. I will leave it at that. Okay.
Question, Joseph.
Go for it.
I'm just wondering, I'm really new to acupuncture from a sort of professional point of view.
Sure.
And I'm just curious whether if you were to treat someone that has just had a miscarriage and is working through the grief of that miscarriage, is it too literal in thinking to sort of say lung 3 and CV4 would be really good points to process that, or is that a kind of too literal way of thinking?
I think in a broad sense, you're right on. Okay. I would want to see if they're the appropriate points for that person at that time. Okay. So the individualizing of it. But in a theoretical sense, the letting go and turning back into the roots may well be a very appropriate thing to do after the shock, frustration, and even shame that could come up after a miscarriage. We humans can be quite complicated. And what we've learned in our family of origin, what we believe we're here to do, our expectations, all of those can get very knotted, okay? And it's hard to even say it here. I'm not one to blame the victim. There's no point in that whatsoever for me. Someone who's experienced something has experienced something. How can I help is my orientation. And those 2 points I can see being very helpful. And literally someone wanted to have that babe in their arms, okay? And those points, the lung 3 points, are very important in that. You might even hold the child up to heaven, you know? And that there was a failure, I don't know the right word here, that it didn't work. That's a lot to process through and a lot to regain trust in so that you might try again. I don't know if you know this, I do traditional Chinese gynecology. I had years when I was doing fertility work. I had a whole bulletin board of all the kids that were mine, but I didn't have to pay for them. It's wonderful, wonderful work. And it's extremely challenging because of situations like this. It's still wonderful in the challenges, but it really made me drop into being compassionate as the first choice and only choice. Even when they were not dropping into compassion for themselves. Great question, thank you. Okay.
Can I just ask one thing?
Go for it. Yes.
You mentioned, that it's important to close the window.
Uh-huh.
And in such a situation, of course, very important, like this situation you just answered.
Right.
So I'm thinking, do I think right when I think, for example, rose or helichrysum on CV17?
I like that. It's for me, it's less a matter of right or wrong, but more what might be a good choice at that particular time for that particular person. And a session for me should have a beginning,
Yeah.
a middle, and especially if someone has gotten very open or very raw,
Yeah.
then having an oil and a point to help close the session, so that they can go back into the world in a protected way, in a place that their heart feels safe and secure. That's very, very important. I think it is even more important in these days than it was previously in my life.
I totally get that.
One of the things I like about that is if I'm working with another person in this role of practitioner, thinking about how they will be as they leave our time together, okay? So that is part of their healing process. I love helping people get open, but you don't want to go open back onto the freeway or open into, in the US, we have this giant chain store called Costco, and it's just a warehouse of goods. And if someone is wide open and they go into Costco, it's an assault. It's just wrong. Okay. I have nothing against Costco when I need warehouse stuff. Okay. But when I've dealt with the vulnerable and tender energies in someone, okay, there needs to be a protective shell again, or a container again, so that it can carry that forward. Again, I'm going to go back to CV4 for a moment here. The uterus is a protected container. All right. There's a cervix. There's the character, actually, it's the gate I talked about with Ne Guan. It's a Guan. Okay. The Chinese of this would be Guan Yuan. It's a gate that has a boundary to it. So you can't get in and out easily. You have to be given permission. Okay. And then the character Yuan actually shows a head, like the head of a tribe or a head. And if you think of the cervix, one of the times we see the cervix is when a head's coming out. So there's a lot in that, okay? And after a woman's delivered, you want to make sure she's protected and closed back up, because that opening, which allowed the birth, is also potentially an opening that could allow disease in. Did that make sense? Okay, so
yeah, very much.
I'm going to bring it back home. That idea of closing a session with awareness, with tenderness, with care, be it with Rose or Neroli or whatever it might be, it's a very important idea. Really enjoy that. Thank you. All right. How are we doing time-wise?
Thank you.
We got a half hour left, which is great. We've been doing the question and answer, so we're kind of in the integrated, both the sequence chart and question and answers. This is working okay? Thumbs up, shake your head. Okay. Anyone want to ask a question about the acknowledge and transform sequence?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
When I'm doing the protocol here, and I get to the patchouli,
okay,
I feel energy reaching to the pelvic area. I don't know the words. Energy is being pulled there and accumulated.
Yep.
And then after a while, it goes up through the torso, through the fourth and fifth chakra. No, 3 and 4th chakra. And kind of lift all the energy. What is the connection between patchouli and conception vessel 4? It should be only doing something down in the pelvis, I think.
No.
Is it that coming up?
So it has a profound effect on the roots. And if you take care of the roots, you take care of the whole plant. You take care of the whole body. It then comes up, if you're looking in terms of chakras, again into the heart, okay? Again into the third chakra. It has a lot of digestive functions. It has a lot of emotional functions in a heart sense, all right? I'm just going to go there because this is me, okay? If two people have decided that they're going to be intimate together, if they're going to quote unquote make love, you can do it in a very first and second chakra way. And we can elevate that into the third and fourth chakras, the fourth especially, which is a very different thing. For me, it's literally making love, not just making sex. Okay. And one of the things patchouli does, which is part of its aura and part of why it was assigned to the hippies in the 60s and 70s. Well, accidentally, it was in all sorts of cloth that was coming from India as a pesticide, as to keep people or keep bugs from eating the cloth. But all that cloth was imported into areas where people were buying it because it was cheap and using it as bedspreads and using it as wall hangings. And that smell started permeating the atmosphere, okay? Interestingly enough, in the Ayurvedic traditions, it had been used historically for its reproductive and aphrodisiac functions, but it got into commerce because it kept cloth from being eaten by bugs. So there's, why did the plant make the oil? Okay. Clearly it was to ensure its survival in an immune system sense, to fight off bugs that might bite the leaves. But the leaves are also there as an expression of this life force, like that is germinated in the roots and comes up to grow, flourish, and even flower. Okay, so I'm not sure if I exactly answered your question, but I think I did, at least generally. Is that working?
Yes, I think so. I have to consume this.
One of the things that Tiffany will often say is that every oil affects all chakras. Okay, certain chakras have more of an affinity or more of an obvious effect, more of an effect we're interested in. Okay, patchouli, you know, that again, what I go back to is that one of the things it brings out in me and humans that I might recommend it with is that connection with the reproductive function, the reproductive health, but also of bringing heart in and through that, right? I've, in a way, just said it's the second and the fourth chakra, but I mean everything between there. So I'll leave it at that for now, right? Other questions, comments? I'm so glad I finally got the chart right. Yeah, Marie.
I was wondering because when I started to, when I got the Saru, I got all the oils from the Monara, and I started that. Is it, I think I started to get something in my lungs after I start working with it. Like it's like some, something what is it called? I don't know. It started to feel something in my airways and something that has to come up.
Right.
I can't remember the word in English, but does it? We can make a session with people who have some challenges with these different things, and we could work. But could it also start some processes?
Yes.
That there's, yeah, like it. I think it has with me started a process of something letting go from my lungs.
Yeah, those are really good words for it too.
Yeah.
So I pulled up. I'm sharing the Siro chart. Is that people can see that? Down here in the lower part, Siro's common name is Mandra Vasorata. Okay, I don't know if I pronounced that all that well, but that which overcomes all challenges, okay, fights off illnesses. Most cultures have some sort of a leaf that they use to open the lungs, which can help clear stuff that's in the lungs that needs to be spit out or coughed out. Hasn't been. The lungs in Chinese medicine, they need a certain amount of moisture, but they need a thin moisture that's not too viscous, that's not too sticky. You want it to be sticky enough to catch things so that they can then be spit out or coughed out. But you don't want it to be so thick that it doesn't let oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. Okay? Leaf oils are where the plant breathes. So are needles in a pine or a conifer. leaf oils almost always have some sort of a lung human function, okay? And they help clear, the oils were made by the plant to clear what funguses or whatever might be on the leaf that get in the way of its respiratory function. Okay. So nature, this is a very highly evolved chemistry to open the breathing of the plant's leaf. Okay. Now, through the wonderful, brilliant beauty of nature, we exhale carbon dioxide, plants inhale. In fact, they inhaled carbon dioxide way before we were on the planet. If they don't exhale oxygen, we don't evolve. All right. And their chemistry was there not to make us happen, but to keep their respiration happening at the leaf level. Making sense. I can see the head nod there. Okay? So you'll often find that leaf oils, okay, have a respiratory function in humans because they had a respiratory function in plants. Now, having said that, I would never use poison oak leaf oil, okay, because it's deadly to a human being, right? We have this oil that comes from Madagascar in a local Malagasy tradition. They call it that which fights off illness, that which overcomes all challenges. That's a pretty good, thumbs up that this is a good oil, okay? And it's a good oil in an area where you might have lung challenges. This is a tropical area, okay? You might have too much moisture in the air, and moisture in the air can get especially funguses growing in the lungs, can basically cause a level of asthma, all right? So historically, sociologically, they found this oil or this leaf in tea, okay, useful for opening their lungs, okay? We get the benefit of the plant's evolution and the social evolution, and we have this oil to use now. I'm astounded, actually. The beauty of that, it's beyond me. But I can still appreciate it. Other questions on the chart, on the points in the chart, on the oils in the chart?
I have another question, and you might have answered it while I had to look after my kids. So if you have, just let me know and I'll rewatch. When I do the sequence, I really have this desire to put an oil on the sole of my foot. So in terms of, and you spoke about the closing, and then there was a question I had to leave, so it might have been answered in that. But it's this real desire of kind of cedar wood. Yeah, cedar wood is sort of what comes to my mind mainly, to really put it on the sole of my foot. It just feels a bit left hanging.
Yeah.
This quadruple sequence. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's various words we could use here. Grounding, rooting, rerouting. Kidney 1 is, if we're not upside down, our direct connection with the earth in the normal human stance between heaven and earth. All right. If I've worked on something and it's brought a lot up, and I'll use that as a directional term along with an emotional term, things are up. I'm in my heart, I'm in my head about what's going on. It's hard to get the next step until I come back into my feet. Cedarwood is one of those very rooting oils for me, okay? I especially like it on kidney 3 where we had it last month, all right? But kidney 1, that's fine too, all right? And on the sole of the feet, just literally makes me more conductive, makes me more receptive to the energies of the earth, which are the nourishing that I need to continue growing. So I think I'm going to start doing what you've been doing, okay?
But I'm curious why it's not there.
Okay. I don't know on one level, but I can speculate on another. All right. Um, it's there to make us curious about, or it's not there to make us curious about why it's not there, which is a syllogism, but you still get it. The transforming, I think it's actually that the sequence is complete in itself, but you have to decide where to take the next step with it. Right. And the next step with it to make it practical in a day-to-day and to have to deal with your kid, okay, is probably to do something that's a lot more grounding and maternal, like, oh, I got to get them out of that. I got to feed them or whatever. All right. So rather than understand why it might or might not be a great choice, I'm looking at what it helps me choose next is to move forward, to step forward in a grounded way, to put some oil that's rooting and grounding on the sole of my foot. I could inhale that, and that would help instill or bring that energy forward also. But there's just something very earthy and very exquisite about put it on the foot. And then you take your next step from there.
So it's allowed.
You have all the permission you need if you need to ask for permission. Yeah. Okay. I feel like we're doing good. Any other questions out there? Okay, we're at 11:12. We have all the time we need in the next 18 minutes. Let me move along with the slideshow. Patchouli. Now, just as far as, student and learner and teacher, patchouli is a very new oil to me to being used on points. I've known it as a scent. It was kind of like, well, what the hell is that? But not much of its use. So literally along with you, I was maybe a month or two ahead, maybe, because we did this oil for the Healing Oil Collective, where I really got to feel it and learn it in my embodied way. I put it on my sacrum. I put it on the top of my head. I went outside. I did my Qigong. And I just, in an embodied way, I learned about it. Then from that place, I studied it. I looked at the material on it. Many of you asked, along in the forum, the Facebook group, the village, as I call it, what's a good book? If I was going to say one book, and I hate saying one book because I love books, okay? But Gabriel Mojet's book, Aromatherapy for Healing the Spirit, it's what I want to write my book, kind of like, but different, okay? There it is. It takes the essence of the essential oil and he gives it ecological, Chinese medicine, and sociological and biological meanings. It's kind of like, wow, I love that. And his writings on patchouli, you'll notice one of them's quoted there at the middle of that chart, middle of the bottom, okay? They speak to me in a way that, I get his sincere intent out of the deal, okay? And I really learn from that, especially when I am under the influence of that essential oil, of that plant, and why it evolved the way it did. It's kind of like the oil itself is a gift and I have to unpack it to really be able to accept it and use it. And again, patchouli's new to me, but it's like, it's a gem. Let's see, Mandarin. We haven't spoken of Mandarin. Okay. If you have the Mandarin, go ahead and take a moment. Inhale some, put some on CV17. Yeah. And then go ahead and rub your hands together like we did before. And then put both of them right over CV17. So you've got both of those pericardium backing each other up, pointing in at CV17, okay, which is a major point for the pericardium along with being a conception vessel point. Yeah. Well, just while you're there, nervous system relaxant, Mandarin Neo can help hypertension, palpitations, and stress-related heart conditions. Due to the calming uplift that Mandarin brings, it's an excellent choice for any condition that has a stress origin. Means anything in 2020 it's good for. Physiologic uses, supports digestion, relieves bloating, hiccups, constipation, nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, particularly helpful for digestive issues connected to nervous tension and inner turmoil. Chinese medicine associations, fire and earth, wood elements, liver, pericardium, heart and stomach, soothes the liver qi, harmonizes the middle, that means harmonizes the digestion, calms the heart, relieves stomach and spleen stagnation. The rejuvenating brightener, the effervescence of fortune. Okay. I'm a nerd, I can admit it, okay? I love reading, I love science, I love getting into oils, and sometimes I get so into them, I get lost in them. And so the immediacy of placing the oil on a point, okay, gives me a new center to feel through all that information and distill out of it what is going to work for me, what I'll remember. The information will still be printed in all those books. It'll still be accessible online. I don't have to capture it. It's like capturing water. You grab water, you end up with a wet hand and no water, okay? But if I open to it by using the oil with a point, by using the method to learn the method, okay, all that information gets filed somewhere in my being, okay? And then I trust that when I need it, it'll come through, okay? What I love about Mandarin, it's a citrus oil, it's uplifting, it's clarifying, all right? And there's a regality to it there. I mean, it's one of the oldest citruses that was cultivated. And it's one of the ones that's made all the other citruses possible in their worldwide migration from Southeast Asia out, right? There's a regality to it. Okay, I'm really not that much into royals overall, okay? But that regality of spirit, I am into. And that's one of the things. I know Mandarin from Chinese medicine, and you use the aged peels of the Mandarin oranges, if you will, primarily for digestive stuff, all right? Primarily for stagnation in the spleen and stomach. But the mental and emotional uses, those are ones that are like, oh, those are starting to open up. All right. Meanwhile, oh, you know me, I like vocabulary. Camphoraceous. Can you see the screen there? Forgive my English, it's just what it is. A camphoraceous scent is one that's similar to camphor, Cinnamomum camphora. Strongly aromatic and medicinal scent. In the US, we have a product that's called Vicks Vapo Rub that if a kid has got congestion in the lungs, mothers were trained to put that on the intercostal spaces between the ribs to open up the lungs so the kid could expectorate to clear out stuff, okay? It opens the lungs and the sinuses. It's antitussive, it relieves a cough, okay? Now, camphoraceous oils can be very strong and they can literally burn the skin, okay? You don't want them anywhere near the mucous membranes. If you get an eyeful of a camphoraceous oil, it's often like your eyes are burning, okay? So we'll tend to use camphoraceous oils in a dilute form. There was a question from the forum about Saro. Okay, it's relatively mild in its camphoraceous quality, but it still has that lung opening energy. So a 50-50 dilute of that with a good carrier oil, always good. You might even dilute it down to 25 for someone who has very sensitive skin. Okay, I'm Scot-Irish. I have very sensitive skin, so I end up diluting everything, right? There are other camphoraceous oils because this is a quality that's across oils. And literally the oil and the substance known as camphor is the definition. But different plants will have different levels of those camphoraceous qualities or chemistry. Okay? So when people are talking about oils, sometimes it's kind of like they're talking about wine. Like, I don't know what the heck they're talking about. That there's oaky or woody or rooty. And when I smell an oil, all of a sudden I start to go, what is the word for that? And the word for that opening that really gets my eyes open, that opens up my lungs, one of those words at least is camphoraceous. Doing good out there? Keep calm and qigong on. I'm gonna leave that up for a moment. We did it. Okay. Some words in summation in closing of these office hours. I'll do a couple more general. For me as a teacher, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. If a question has been asked 3 times, I might ask you to answer your own question. All right. And in fact, it's quite interesting to see what your answer would be no matter what. So please feel free in these office hours and before and after to email me questions. Questions bring out the best. They're kind of like the oil. A question distills a lot of the things I know and brings them into the form of an answer. Not the answer, but an answer. And an answer that can help you be more effective and more useful with your points and oils. I can't think of anything better. Right? So please feel free with your questions. All right. The format, I got questions for you and I'd love feedback now and afterwards. How I laid them out with notes, does that work for you? Okay. The outline that I had was 30 minutes, 30 minutes, and 30 minutes. After the first 15, 20 minutes, it was like, no, we're going to bring the questions in now. And we'll do that in the future. All right. If it's hard for you to ask a question, okay, you can raise a hand, you can unmute, get the question in. Be aware of other people and their questions. Don't put it on top of somebody, but you have my permission to ask questions that are important to you. Okay. Rosalina, you got a finger up. Is that a question or you're just smelling an oil?
Both. Yes, I have a question. I have tried to find a book
Sure.
with the acupunctures in Danish. And I find 2 of them. Not many are written in Danish. But when I'm looking for a conception vessel, I can't find it, but I can find someone called Ren.
Ren, the English, yes. Yes, that
it looks like the same, is it?
It is.
Is that, okay, thank you. And can you recommend a good book, of course in English, to learn more about the acupuncture? Because when I'm digging a little bit deeper into it, I'm being overwhelmed of how big it is and how much there is and where to start with all those things.
Yeah.
Yes. So
yeah.
Maybe you have to think about it. I don't know, but
think more about it, I'll share some of it now.
yes, and I have to say, I don't have any experience in acupuncture. Yeah,
So
acupuncture at all. So
I
a
had
lot in one, but not in the other.
okay. I had a school for years, and so I was always trying to figure out the best book. And there is no best book. They're really, really good ones, and they're usually really, really good because they have a particular purpose that they serve. So finding out what purpose you want the book to serve is a part of that question. Am I making sense there? Okay. Now, there are good atlases. There are good and complete books that have all the points in them. And really, all the points are great. Classically, there's about 360, so you just have to learn 1 point a day and you get it all in a year. Except that some of them are just more important to you and your purpose than others. One of the things I like about the Healing Oil Collective and now the Aroma Point Mastery is we're focusing down on a subset of points that we find really important. So, and I'm biased as heck. The more you can get into the name of the point, the actual ecological location and description of the point, the more you'll know about the point. Some points will be called marshes, and that's because they will be on the yin surfaces where the lymphatic tissue is in the body, okay? Some are called mountains because there's a bone underneath that's kind of mountainous, all right? As above, so below. In the Chinese worldview that these are coming from, okay? Now it's a broad spectrum worldview. I'm not going to narrow it down too much, but the earth has its points and its meridians, and they are mirrored in our points and meridians. And so understanding a point in the geology of a body or in the cosmology of a body is a really important understanding. I don't know of any best book there. Anything written by Elizabeth Rochat de Valle. Now, she's French. She's translating first from Chinese into French, and then it gets translated into English. I mean, you have those issues with translation there. But she's one of my favorite teachers of my lifetime, okay? I don't speak French, but somehow or other, I hear her when she speaks, and I get it. And what she brings out about the points is their name, their location, and the way they are used in life, okay? I don't know that I'm answering your question. I'm just kind of speculating or talking around it. If you wanted one reference work, Peter Dedman has a manual of acupuncture that has an app and has a big old book, okay? The app is one of the things I use most often because I can go on the app and I can take a screenshot of the picture of the point and I can email that to someone so I know that they have a picture of where that point is located, okay? It's one of my core references, all right? Now, there are other charts that you'll see sometimes where I'll put Worsley location, okay? That's another atlas with some slightly different locations in it. So it can get to be there's too many books and there's too many interpretations. So I'm going to come back to find a good reference, take an oil that helps you understand. Maybe it's a frankincense, maybe it's a bergamot, and put it on the point you're wanting to learn and understand, and let the oil guide your learning process. Okay.
So you're recommending starting with 1 point and get to know that, and then go to the next point.
Which is pretty much the method in this program, okay?
Yes. But when I'm looking at the fundamental acupuncture, I see all the DEMT and the TENS and so on, and I look at the descriptions. And I say, okay, it's a little bit of that, and a little bit of that, and a little bit of that, and then, oh, should I then do all of them?
What a
And
wonderful problem. Okay.
so that's difficult for me. Or should I, if I have want to help someone with insomnia, there's a lot of acupoints for that, but which one should I choose? So that's one of the things. I mean, it's too big.
Yeah.
How do we narrow it down? And yes.
We're going to close up here. So Rosalina, we can add more of this offline through the forum or through email. And it's always too big. That's one of the benefits, so that we can grow with it and then find those parts that actually fit the meaning and purpose, the person that we're working with, and how to help them or how to help myself. I trust that the point and the oil, the intelligence, the wisdom that they encapsulate will come forward and will teach me, so that I'll get to the point where my hand reaches for the point that's a good choice before my mind even thinks of it. It's kind of like cooking that way. After a while, you know enough spices that you just reach for one and you throw it in, and it makes the taste just like you want it. Okay. On that note, it's lunchtime nearly for me. So why don't everybody unmute and we will say ciao, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. Happy
Goodbye.
much love.
Farvel.
Thank you so much.
Farvel. Moin.
Ha en god aften.
Bye, everybody.
Hej hej.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hej.
Thank you, Joseph.
You're so welcome. Love y'all.
Thanks, Joseph. Joseph, can you spell the name of that Elizabeth, that author?
Oh yeah, I will put it in the forum. It's a long one, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
And the app as well. Huh? Can you share the app?
Forum. I'll do a resources post, okay?
Super. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good lunch.
Thank you. I plan to.